is your assessment of what happened today?
Well, first of all, I mean, thankfully the Secret Service did a good job in terms of identifying that muzzle sticking out of that fence line, and then they immediately engaged. I'm just surprised that the suspect was able to get there and set up the way he did and wait. I mean, this individual had to have known something about former President Trump and his golf outings. I mean, for him to get there and wait and to know that he has not passed that hole yet, that must mean he knew his tee time. Because it's a 4-hour course when you play a round of golf on average. So he had to have known what time he was teeing off to know that approximately what time he'd be reaching that particular hole. I mean, it'd be interesting to find out how many people were at that golf course with him and why or if the perimeter was checked. And again, I mean, great work they did once they identified the threat. They immediately engaged and probably saved some lives. But the AK-47 is a very dangerous firearm. It's a very dangerous weapon. I mean, without having any training, that firearm could reach up to 380 yards. If you have specialized training, you're talking about up to 700 yards you could hit your intended target. He was approximately somewhere between 300 to 500 yards away from the shooter. So he was within range. So great work for the Secret Service for engaging immediately when they saw that muzzle sticking out the fence line. But the question is, how did the suspect even get that close? Kind of like the first incident. How did that suspect get on that roof? How did that suspect be able to take a shot at the former president from 100 yards away? It's scary. And also, remember that 300 yards, he was 300 to 500 yards away, but he hadn't gotten to that part yet. So had that muzzle not been sticking out the fence line, and had that suspect waited until the former president got closer to that as he's going down that golf course, the outcome might have been much different.
That is very interesting. What would you be doing now if you're on his Secret Service detail?
Well, one, the perimeter needs to be checked and hardened, right? I mean, that was a very soft perimeter. For that suspect to be able to get that close and to sit there with a backpack, with a long rifle, and wait to ambush the president. I mean, the first incident, it should have been lesson learned. They should have had a lot more Secret Service agents on his task force and on his detail, and they should have been checking that perimeter continuously. If you look at the golf course, there's roads that run parallel behind it, north, east, south. I mean, those roads need to be cleared after that first assassination. Those roads need to be cleared, especially when you know he's coming up on that hole. For example, whether he's on the back nine or the front nine, they need to secure that area better.
Do you think there needs to be another question of accountability and in light of what happened today?
I think that we don't do the knee-jerk reaction, right? Let's wait for the investigation to play out, and let's find out how many agents were on the detail, what were their assignments, who was in charge of advancing that. Because anytime the president's going to go anywhere, even the golf course, there's an advance. You go out there, you check the perimeter, you clear buildings, you identify people that are going to be there, on how close in proximity they're going to be to him, background checks, you do all those types of things. So we have to wait and see on the outcome of the investigation to determine what did they do, and then by that we'll be able to determine what they should have done.
The other interesting thing is that in this case, there was a witness, someone who was able to say, hey, I saw a guy take off, get into a car. Here's the license plate. Can you talk about the quick acting versus if you compare that to the witnesses that were in Pennsylvania who say we were trying to tell police and nobody seemed to take it seriously, the difference in handling that?
I think that, and if I'm not mistaken, in this particular situation, those witnesses actually dialed 911. They actually dialed the emergency number and spoke directly to a dispatch. At the other incident that happened on the first assassination attempt, you had people yelling at the law enforcement officers there on site. And then that's where the communication breakdown was, right? The locals didn't have direct communication with the federal agencies, the Secret Service. So there was your breakdown there. This one here is a little bit different because you had these witnesses dialing 911 directly, and then the dispatch was communicating directly to local law enforcement officers. Because if you know, the local law enforcement officers that are the ones that started to follow the vehicle, and they waited till there's enough manpower, and they did the traffic stop. So it wasn't the Secret Service that did that. It was the local law enforcement officers off of the 911 call that the witnesses dialed.
Oh, that's very interesting. Um, Based on your experience and your knowledge and your expertise, is there any other thoughts that you have that can help us, I guess, convey this story to our viewers?
I don't. I wish I did because it doesn't make any sense. You had your first assassination attempt. I mean, you look at you debrief on everything you did and did not do, and you improve. And for again, we'll wait to see what the investigation reveals in this particular situation. But it just doesn't make any sense to me that this person could get that close with a high power rifle again without any detection. And again, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, this rifle can hit its intended target if you're not trained 380 yards, if you're trained up to 700 yards. And so the president was 300 to 500 yards away from this assassination attempt.